Okay, welcome to Design Your Own Pizza demonstration. So you guys have been really busy in lesson time and for homework designing your own pizza based on a country. I'm going to be demonstrating the base and you guys will be designing your own toppings and will be putting your own designs into action. So in a large bowl you need 250 grams of strong white bread flour. It's really important we use bread flour because it's got high gluten content, and that gluten is what traps the CO2 from the yeast and is going to provide you with a lovely springy base. So put that in a bowl. On top of that we're going to add yeast, 1 teaspoon of yeast. Now yeast is actually alive. At the moment it's asleep, so we need to wake it up. And it's a bit like us when we need to wake up in the mornings. It needs certain things to wake it up. It needs food, so we're going to add 1 teaspoon of sugar. That is its food to wake it up, a bit like your breakfast in the morning. And then it needs warm water, but we're going to add that in a second. So yeast needs time, moisture, warmth and food in order to activate it, a bit like us in the morning. Into this bowl we're also going to add a tiny bit of salt. We're going to sprinkle it into our hands because we only need a pinch, so we don't do it on a spoon. We're just going to do it into our hands, and it's just a little bit, and that's going to add flavour to our dough. We also want our dough to be quite rich and have lots of depth of flavour, so we're going to add 1 tablespoon of olive oil. This is going to help with the elasticity of the dough as well. So 1 tablespoon of oil in there too. And like I said, as yeast is alive, we need to wake it up, but we don't want to kill it. So the way we can kill it is by adding water that's too hot, and we're not going to wake it up enough if the water's too cold. So when we're measuring out our water, we need to make sure first of all it's on a flat surface. You need to make sure you get your face down in line with the jug and check on the side of the jug the measurements. If you're holding in the air, the water is going to be tilting everywhere and you can't get an accurate measuring of how much water you've got in your jug. The best way to check, we need something called blood temperature water. So that means between sort of 36 to 37 degrees. So the best way to check is to put our finger in. It shouldn't feel hot, it shouldn't feel cold, it should just feel wet because it's the same temperature as us. Now we're going to slowly incorporate the water into the dough. So mix all of that yeast, sugar and oil into the bowl, and we're going to push all the flour to the sides. We're creating a well in the middle of our bowl. There we go. And we're going to add our water slowly into that middle. You don't want to add it all at once because not all dough needs the same amount of water. So this is where you're going to have to use your independent learning skills and make a judgment on how much water you need. We're going to also mix it with a knife because if we try and mix it with our hands, we're going to end up with pizza dough fingers rather than pizza dough in our bowl. So slowly add water in, a bit at a time. Like I said, we might not need all of that water. Okay. So keep mixing it, keep mixing it. You can see it slowly come together, but it's still a little bit dry in the bottom, so we're going to add that last bit of water, okay, and mix that in. You can see now it's starting to form a ball shape, and I want you to cut that dough in half because the wettest part is in the middle. So keep cutting it in half and getting that middle bit onto the outside. Now we can see it's all coming together, so now it's ready for us to knead it. So we need to put some flour down onto our surface. This is going to prevent the dough from sticking to the worktop. Okay. You want the dough to be a little bit sticky, but not so sticky that it's a porridge. So you're going to put a bit of flour on your hands. Okay, put your flour on your hands and we're going to start kneading our dough. So kneading is where we're stretching out the gluten and creating a lovely soft dough. Okay, we're stretching out that gluten. Kneading is all about using our palms, this area, and our fingertips. So we're pushing away the dough with this part and then we're folding it back on itself and then we're twisting it about a quarter an hour. So if you think about a clock, we're twisting it 15 minutes almost. So you're going to hold the back of the dough with one hand, one finger's tips, then you're going to push away with one palm and fold it back on itself. Okay, and you'll see it's stretching out, and that's stretching out that gluten. Okay, so keep turning it, kneading it. If it starts to get a bit sticky, add a little bit more flour down. Okay, you don't want to add so much flour that you've got a pool of flour because that will dry your dough out. You guys are going to do this for about 5 minutes. Now you need to look at the clock and time it properly to get the best pizza dough base you can. It'll feel like you've been doing it for ages, so make sure you time it. to make sure you do it for the right amount of time. Okay, so we're going to pretend that I've been kneading this for 5 minutes. Obviously your dough will look a bit better in this because you will have kneaded it for 5 minutes. Next we're going to roll it out. So obviously we need a bit more flour down because we don't want it sticking. We're going to use our rolling pins. We're going to put a little bit of flour in there because we don't want to stick to our rolling pins either. Now when we're rolling, we don't want to force it down, we're just going to lightly roll it out, okay? So lightly do a couple of rolls to start with, and what you'll see is it will stretch back. That's the gluten, that's totally normal. It will stretch out and then stretch back. So we've got to keep encouraging it and stretching it out. We don't want to just keep rolling it in the same place because it's going to stick to our sides. So we need to do a few rolls, pick it up, turn it round, roll it the other way. 1, 2, pick it up, turn it round, roll it, okay? If it starts to get a bit sticky, again, put some more flour down. Now, it's up to you how thick you want your base. If you want a really thin crust, obviously you're going to have to go and roll it out as much as you possibly can. If you like quite a thick crust, a deep pan, obviously you're going to leave it a bit deeper than you would for a thin crust. Okay, so as you can see, it's got a bit sticky, so a little bit of flour on top. I keep turning it round, and you really need to push now and use your energy to stretch out this dough. Okay, so here we go. It's about roughly the sort of size I want. If I wanted to now cut this into a shape, I could use my butter knife, I could cut it into a triangle, any shape. Think about your design and think about how you're going to shape your pizza. Okay, here we go. So I've got a sort of a pizza slice shape, and I'm now going to get that onto my tray. So I've got a grease tray, we're going to put that down, stretch it out to a right shape. There we go, so I've almost got New York pizza style. So we're going to then add passata. Passata is sieved tomatoes. We don't use tomato puree. Tomato puree is really acidic, really concentrated and very bitter. So we use something called sieved tomatoes, which is the same as what you get in a tin of tinned tomatoes without the lumps. So we're just going to add a couple of spoonfuls of this, and then we're going to spread it round. We don't want to flood it because it's going to become too wet. So you just put a thin layer all around your centre. Leave the edges because obviously you don't want you want to leave that nice crust on the edge. Okay. Then we add our cheese. Again, just an even sprinkle of that cheese. And then you're going to add your toppings as well. You'd want your toppings to be quite thin because they're going into the oven and they're only going to cook for about 10 to 12 minutes. We don't want to make sure our toppings are thin so that they cook through. If you've got big massive chunks of pepper, they're never going to cut through. So you arrange your toppings to match your design. Obviously if you're doing a flag, you can do stripes if you want to. It's totally up to you. We're then going to put this in the oven for about 10 to 12 minutes. Again, it's going to be down to your judgment when it's ready. If you want a really thin, crispy pizza, you need it in for longer. Whereas if you want quite a soft, doughy pizza, you're going to take it out. The most important thing is you're looking at all the cheese is melted and has started to go golden. Okay, it's then up to you and your judgment of when it's going to be ready.